All right. Welcome back to WTF Is Up. It's your host, Jeremy Schiefling, joined by my co-host, Omar Garriott. And today we are thrilled to have our fellow William Chichester, joining us on the line. Welcome, William.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited to have you on board because you have done all the things that we are so jealous of. This episode is all about FOMO because William has been on early talent acquisition from Target to startups and everywhere in between. And so he knows what it's like for a company that's hiring entry-level talent, as well as coaching that entry-level talent to be super successful. And that's why we want to bring his perspective to you today. That being said, by special demand, I am going to be doing the dad joke to kick off today's episode. So here's one that I heard recently. So Omar and William, what do you call a Viking who has lost his ship?
I got nothing.
No.
I got nothing.
That's the best kind of dad joke. Just leaves you totally stumped. Well, that Viking is now called a hiking because he is on his own, which is what I told my daughters if they didn't stop fooling around in the car this weekend. Okay, that being said, we've got way more important topics to talk about. So, William, just to get things rolling here, I know I sort of teed it up a little bit in terms of your background, but tell us more. How did you go from the University of Virginia on grounds all the way to this amazing career? What are some of the highlights of that Sports Center version of William's life?
Yeah, so I'll start with the career clip and then I'll kind of go backwards a little bit. So William Chichester spent the last 20 years or so of my career in the early career space or university recruiting. We're getting lots of different names right now, and we can go into that if you like. But I worked across Target, Microsoft, Capital One, multiple different industries. I was also at Peloton for a good ride. We can talk about that too. But hiring thousands of students
For a good ride. That was a good
Hey,
dad
did you
joke.
like that?
That was dad joke level there.
I tried to slide that up in there,
Good.
It's my little dad moment of the day.
All right, you get us. I feel seen. All right, keep going. So Peloton.
No, you're good. But no, hiring thousands of college students, undergraduate, PhDs, MBAs. So I've run the gamut. I've done professional recruiting as well. But to go backwards a little bit, I came into this world because let me just start off. So I grew up on a farm. So a couple things you may not be able to see me, but I'm Black. I grew up on a farm. I was low income, first generation college student. I was an Arabic and Middle East studies major, so liberal arts. So I say all that to simply say, when you think about it from a career perspective, I felt like, in my opinion, I checked every wrong box you could. It's like, how the hell do I change the trajectory of my career or my life when you feel like all of those boxes are not the right box? Even the rural part, I talk about that in my journey a little bit because people don't understand. There's a whole part of our country and parts of the world there, you don't live in a city. And when you think about opportunity and access to opportunity, if your closest neighbor is a mile or two away, you're not close to museums, you're not close to libraries or things like that. You may or may not even have access to the internet. I mean, hell, we had a satellite dish and we were lucky to have a satellite. But I say all that to simply say, those boxes, and again, I bring this up for students who may listen to this or even professionals, where it's like every damn box is counting against you, but all you can control is your attitude and your mindset. And from my entire life, I had to think about, what am I going to do to change my attitude? How do I change the trajectory of my life? Everyone around me was blue collar. They didn't, aspire to leave Fauquier County, Virginia. They wanted to stay where they were. And I was like, hell no, I want a better life for myself. And I was surrounded by good people, from my family members to people in my church, the schools. They would nominate me for different opportunities. And I won a lot of scholarship money, which afforded me an opportunity and a network. And we could talk about relationships and its importance in a moment. But that got me into the University of Virginia. Why that is important is because the University of Virginia, as a university recruiting leader, is a core school for most Fortune 500 companies. If I had made any other choice in schools, I had other schools I could have went to, but I didn't realize that I lucked out by going to UVA. There's only less than 1% of universities are considered core schools for most companies. Most companies only recruit at 10 to 30 schools. So I was lucky to go to one of those. But if you don't go to one of those, or if you don't have the right major in all of those things, that's where things can go awry for you. And then the other fortunate thing for me at the University of Virginia, two things. I graduated in a great market. I graduated in 2005. Hiring was going crazy at the time. So much so that your Arabic and Middle East Studies major had 2 corporate offers.
Wow.
It would never happen today, unfortunately. I mean, it would be hard unless you have a good relationship and a good network. But I was a Middle East Studies major in Arabic. I wasn't finance. I wasn't in the comm school or the business school, for those who don't know lingo from UVA. I wasn't an engineer. I wasn't pre-law. I was just liberal arts, and I was passionate about the Middle East. That was it. But I got an opportunity at Vanguard Group in Philadelphia and IBM Consulting as a liberal arts major.
Oh.
I mean, I say all that to simply say, again, I graduated in a good market. I could not control that, right? And this is a market where we're sadly not in the best hiring market.
Yes.
The other thing that looked out for me is that I had the director of career services my first year at UVA was asking for volunteers for the career services. And basically, she was looking for student career peer educators. So these are folks that would basically kind of be ambassadors to the career services office, get students to come into the office. Because if you are familiar with UVA, it's in Scott Stadium. That's really far, depending on where you are on grounds. And so the point of it was to almost be an evangelist for the career services office to get students to utilize it and come get their resumes looked at and all that. So I learned the trade of evaluating resumes as a first year. I helped to learn how to interview. I got a chance to meet with a lot of different employers. So again, if I said no to that opportunity, I don't know if I would have did this career, but that one yes opened up my entire career path. So anyway, I'm gonna stop there, but that's a little bit about who I am.
That is amazing. And so I'm super excited because I think you've already hit on such a key point for our audience, whether you're a student or a job seeker or even a career coach, which is, hey, you have to have that internal locus of control, especially in these challenging moments, to say, I'm going to go out there and create my own luck. I can't always count on the world to do it for me. That being said, let's start with our 2026 reality and then work our way backwards. From where you sit, William, having done this job across so many organizations, what the heck is going on with university recruiting and entry-level hiring today? We hear all these doom and gloom headlines about AI is eating all these jobs and there's no way to get hired. What is really the state of play in that world today?
Yeah, no, it's
and related, are there even core schools anymore?
Interesting.
Yes, there are. But let me hit that first myth. The reality is that a lot of people think AI is coming after entry-level talent or just jobs in general. The bald truth about it, and I do a podcast called Bald, Bold, and Hired, so I had to do my little plug for my partner in crime.
Yes.
But the truth is that it's not yet. The reality is it's more macroeconomic. And I think for a lot of leaders, if you're a CEO on this call, or you're running an organization or a company, or you're starting a company, I think for a lot of leaders, they are trying to figure out what the hell's happening within our political system. One day we're about to invade another country. One day we don't know if we're doing a tariff. So for a lot of leaders right now, there's just a lot of uncertainty. How do you run a company when you don't know what the hell tomorrow is going to bring? So organizations are just, if I'm being really honest, are risk averse. We don't want to hire as much because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So we're just going to, you know what? We're going to go on this cost savings effort. So that might mean laying people off. That's the most expensive line item. It might mean lowering our hiring forecasts, which unfortunately impacts people like me in recruiting. I was just impacted actually because of these very reasons. Had nothing to do with AI. Now, are some people using AI because it's an expensive line item? Absolutely. But most companies barely use Microsoft Copilot. I mean, I'm just let that sit in there for a second.
Right.
Most companies, we barely are allowed to use, we can't even use Claude. We can't use ChatGPT. Companies are afraid or scared to death to implement AI in its full form. So a lot of us are secretly paying for it through our own money on the side and using it in our own personal lives. But in an enterprise where, again, people are afraid to put their proprietary information inside of ChatGPT, because again, who controls that? We're still figuring that out. That's where I would say it's not, AI is not the impact. It's just we're in a really difficult time for a lot of folks, but it's more about the economy and the current state of affairs, if I'm being brutally honest.
And let me ask a follow-up there, and then I'm going to turn it over to Omar.
Yeah.
totally makes sense. Whenever there's uncertainty, you pull back, you become more conservative. But if you want to save money, why not fire all those wealthy or affluent 40 somethings versus 21-year-olds who are coming out of university? Like, why are entry level folks seeming to bear the brunt of this right now when they're actually a relatively small line item compared to their more senior peers?
There's two
You
things
also
that I
just
would
said
say.
that to a 40-something who just
I
said he
know.
got laid
I
off.
felt so bad when I said
I
it.
think it's a valid point, and I'll be honest with you, having helped people who've been laid off, including myself. There are two things happening right now. It's like there is pressure for companies to bring down costs. The most expensive cost that a lot of companies are currently targeting is middle management. Well, how old are middle managers?
Exactly. We're looking in
I'm
the mirror.
44. So a lot of my millennial friends are older, or my Gen Xers. We're the ones bearing the brunt of a lot of these cuts. We're probably the most expensive. Now that'll be interesting to see in a couple of years what this looks like, because as organizations are trying to flatten themselves, they're removing that middle management. I actually think there's a lot of parallels, in my opinion, to what's happening now to 2008. I think a lot of companies are laying off a lot of that middle management. They're also cutting their entry level talent, but it's in a short sighted nature, in my opinion. That's William's opinion, because I've seen this movie before. And the beauty of being our age is that we've seen this movie through the financial crisis. We've seen when companies have pulled back college recruiting. And then all of a sudden, those same companies in a couple years, when the pendulum swings the other way, oh my God, we're going to go on a hiring spree. That's literally what happened after the financial crisis. I see the same thing, in my opinion, going to happen again. In terms of the kinds of talent, that still remains to be seen. Of course, that could be AI talent. We don't know yet. That's the thing. But what I will share is there's a lot of parallels to '08 in right now. A lot.
You know, your background's so interesting, coming from where you came from, and then doing a like university recruiting type roles with white collar work, which, as Jeremy said, there's a lot of hand waving about those jobs going away. I'm curious how you can maybe square those things for us a little bit, and maybe even a larger question of how you view, despite our shared love for the University of Virginia, how you view the value of college even anymore in this market that's changing. Because there's some recent data out we talked about on a previous episode that basically the unemployment rate is essentially the same now between college grads and high school grads for the first time in multiple generations. And so one big question we're asking in higher ed all the time is like, what are we for? Are we sure that it's still relevant and going to hold up? And you kind of have this fusing now of people who can upskill without that. So, curious how you see even that experience unto itself, despite the fact that we had great ones here at this school.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good. And I'll be honest with you, it's funny, opportunity just crossed my desk about getting more folks interested in blue collar work. And I'm laughing a little bit inside because I'm like, it's the world I ran from. Like, think about my background. My entire family was blue collar. The difference now, though, is 20 years later, is that a lot of those folks who had those skills are about to retire or retiring as we speak. So we're approaching this retirement cliff. For some of your folks who may or may not be familiar with that. And so a lot of our baby
Silver
boomers
tsunami,
are
silver
leaving the
tsunami.
workforce. Oh, what was that?
Silver tsunami, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. They have different terms for it, but yeah, absolutely. And so who's going to be our plumber? Now I can tell you, having just had some folks do my plumbing down in my crawl space, drop a good, double digit thousands of dollars in plumbing. And I'm looking at my son like, you know what? If you don't go to UVA as much as I want you to, if you become a plumber, I'll be okay with that. Because those skills are going to be in demand in the future. So I absolutely think for colleges, in terms of what I believe, I still believe in the value of a college education. I firmly believe in that. Having been the recipient of how it changed my life and continues to change my life. I mean, I just went to my reunion not that long ago. Now, here's what I would say, particularly for those of us who weren't in the business school or weren't in the engineering school or even the Baton Public School, but schools that really focus on skills. And I think for my liberal arts folks, where I think we need to focus on is something that I wish if I could go back in time, I would have done more of. figuring out what the skills are that are in demand currently. Right now, there's a hiring spree for sales folks because AI can't replace sales. At the end of the day, it's all about revenue. So that's a hot job. In fact, in terms of recruiting roles that I'm looking at, a lot of them are head of sales recruiting, not technical. Now, a couple years ago, it would be more head of technical recruiting. It's more sales recruiting, but sales is one, but there are other these in-demand roles. And the question becomes is how can students who may be an English major or maybe a philosophy major learn about project management or corporate strategy or minor in some other kind of skill set that makes you more marketable in this marketplace? But at the end of the day, none of that matters without relationships. Because in this current economy, in this current market, you need a strong network. And that's where the schools you choose and all of those things really matter. And how do you invest in that skill, in that currency, more than anything else? Yeah, you can, like, you don't even have to have the skills, but if you got the right network, you can get a job.
Absolutely.
Like that. But for people like me who may not have those things, you kind of have to over index until we get that relationship currency, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. I want to make it super concrete for our listeners, especially the job seekers out there. Imagine that there's a William 2.0 graduating from UVA this year with that degree in Arabic and Middle Eastern studies. They're facing this terrible job market, the opposite of 2005. What specific things would you have them work on? Like, what would be your top 3 commandments that they should be focusing on the next 3 months on grounds to walk off with a great job?
When you go to your career services office, do you believe this? Most students don't go.
You're right.
I'm gonna just
Omar
start
and
there.
I saw that at LinkedIn. Like, I think
I'm gonna just start
2/3 of
there.
American students don't even think about
We
careers
don't even
until
go.
spring
We don't-
semester of senior year. Yeah.
And I can say this, having been the evangelist of the University of Virginia Career Services. This is one of the top schools you can go to get a job. Even at UVA, we're not totally utilizing that service in the way that I think we should. If we do anything, most students just get their resume done. But when I talk about really utilizing them, like really understanding, like, who am I? Like, I actually think most people, not just students, but just in general, we don't spend enough time understanding who we are. Like, what are the things that make me tick? Like my personality and doing these self-assessments. So just this idea of self-discovery. Most of us going to college, we already know what we're going to major in. We're going to be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, or whatever. But do we know that that's actually what we would enjoy doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's why people have these midlife crises later in life, is because they didn't take the time when they were younger to understand themselves. Like, just doing that is starting point number 1. What are all of the services available at the university? Utilizing those career services. But the most important thing that most career services teams have is an alumni database. And that thing with UVA was huge. So one of the things that I did, because I was on the whole State Department CIA path, September 11th happened my first year. I declared my major in Arabic and Middle East Studies 2 weeks before that happened. Once I got into my second year, I did this little program in Washington, D.C., where we got a chance to meet like foreign service officers and things like that. I happened to ask one of them, how much did you make? Because again, I didn't know better. I didn't have the etiquette to understand, like, maybe you shouldn't ask about someone's pay. But they actually answered the question and they told me the amount was less than what my mom was making, and she didn't have a diploma. I was like, wait a minute. My mom doesn't have a diploma. You're out here writing policy memos, supporting these senior politicians and leaders in these different countries and embassies, and you make what? And then I had that moment of like, well, this career sounds exciting, but I grew up poor. Like, I can't come out of UVA, and then you're also telling me I got to go to a Georgetown, I got to go to an APSIA school, a Columbia, Harvard, one of these Princeton, Woodrow Wilson. Like, I got to go to all these different schools, come out with this debt and make less than what my mom is making. Like, that was just like unfathomable for me. So I ended up my 4th year, I had this crisis of like, wait, I spent my entire 3 years on this track of the State Department CIA, but it's not going to pay what I think it's going to pay me. So now I need to pivot. And so I opened up the world of consulting. And so when I saw my friends in the comm school and in Darden and everywhere else, like going in their suits in September, to different places at the University of Virginia and just getting dressed up and trying to go to these different info sessions, I got that same bug. And then I started applying to all these different jobs. But I say all that to simply say that for me, while I was doing that, the database at the career services office, that was like brand new. So they were like, William, you can go connect with a partner at McKinsey. I was like, okay, I don't know what McKinsey is. What is that? I'm just so naive. You got to remember where I'm coming from. I didn't know what the hell McKinsey, Bain, or BCG was. So I'm writing messages to people. I see you were a former imp. I see you were a former residence life person like I was. I see you lived in the lawn like I did. I was in 34 East. I see you lived in 6 West or 6 East or whatever. And so I would write these messages and people wrote back. William, I'd love to talk to you. This is before video call. This is where you actually had to physically like dial a phone. I know that's like for some of our listeners, they don't know what that is. But like they wrote me back and they called me and we talked. Like that piece is what students also miss. Is like they're so focused on actually, I'm not even going to say that. Some of them aren't even focused on their peers and building relationships with their peers. There could be a future CEO right next to you, but you don't spend time. All you're doing is focusing on your books. I'm like, no, the guy next to you is actually going to found Reddit. You don't know what Reddit is yet, but like, trust me, if you just get friends with the guy next to you or the girl next to you, that person could open up a door next to you. But you're just so myopic in terms of your tunnel vision, in terms of what you're doing, that we miss building these relationships. So I would say like, if people can just do that, utilize the career services, connecting with their alumni, but more importantly, their peer group, it's huge. So anyway, sorry for that huge ramble.
No, I love that. I love that.
Soapbox moment for me.
We need to have that printed in every dorm room across America. I love that. Yeah. William's commandments.
I think also like, you mentioned how rapidly skills are changing. And I think there's like this natural reaction to want to read tea leaves and say these are the skills that are in demand, right? You mentioned sales. We all know what's happening with programming. But things are changing really quickly, perhaps weekly. And sometimes I think maybe that's a futile effort. Rather, what are the underlying core, almost like professional skills and ways of being that you can develop at least while you're in that crucible time of your life and in college or college age-ish, whether or not you're in college. And of course, we know you got to get digitally literate and fluent with AI, of course. No brainer at this point, right? And figure out how to, like, as we said on this show, they're hiring you plus 5 more people because of your fluency there. But I also think a lot more about, and we've talked about things like hunger, scrap, resilience, figuring it, like adaptability, figuring it out because shit is changing so fast, making sure, like, creativity, human connections, humans in the loop. I love your point about networking. But what do you think about those other kinds of, like, not job specific skills, but really durable skills for work and human connection?
Yeah. No, it's so funny. And to even make that point stronger, when the tech hiring boom occurred, and I remember where I was when it started happening, I was in 2010s. Every company wanted to be digital and they wanted to be tech leaning and tech forward. I was a part of that. We're going to, abandon IT and we're going to go after these people called software engineers. It used to be called IT people, but now we're calling them software engineers. And then when I tell you how much it influenced not just students, college students, because they heard it, it was like, you only want me if I'm computer science. Now we've reached a point where all those high school and middle school students heard that because we were preaching girls got to code, Black people got to code, everybody got to code. Everybody's got to code. Now we have so many people that can code. My nephew being one of them, who's at UVA, can't get a job right now. And he's not alone. There are a lot of people right now who know how to code. Great. Now it's obsolete. Damn. Not obsolete. Let me not be too crass here. But I say that to your point around there's some skills, yes, like you can't chase all of them. And that is an example. But the things that you did learn from that is problem solving. So that gets to skills that no matter what job, you need to know how to problem solve. You need to know how to communicate. You need to know how to influence. That's not just sales, but just influence inside of an organization. That isn't just applying to companies. That can apply to any institution. So and companies, we call them competencies. So those core competencies are the things that I would say investing in. Judgment. I'm trying to think of some more. But yeah, communication, influencing, judgment, problem solving, results focus. This concept of adaptability and resilience is key. And yeah, but these soft skills that we talk about, now there are ways to make them more technical. But at the end of the day, those things matter no matter what role you're in. So I'm glad you brought that.
I want to build on Omar's question there. The softest of skills, which is actually the most important that Omar and I are obsessed with, is empathy. The idea
Sure.
that the human superpower that no AI can ever touch is the ability to truly understand another person. If we wanted to give students and job seekers deep empathy for university recruiters, for the early talent side of things, how does that whole process work? Can you take us into those closed rooms and give us almost like a Vulcan mind meld with what's happening on the other side of the screen?
Yeah. So, and again, this is just helping students to understand what happens behind the scenes when they're going through the process.
You might think to yourself, I'm applying to Target, I'm applying to Peloton, I'm applying to Microsoft. What's happening inside those offices that I need to know about?
Yeah. Recruiters right now, when we open a rec, we get hundreds of applications within seconds. Like, I'm not joking. I'm not playing, because now there are tools that you can use that will auto apply for you. Like, that's something that didn't previously exist that does now through the world of AI. So that's one thing. But then also, again, the market being the way that it is, everyone's applying for the same roles. And so we're experiencing what we call an application avalanche. That's what recruiting is dealing with now. So now we're trying to figure out, how do we sift through all of these applicants who are all great, right? And pick out a few of them, because remember, now we're scared. We don't know if the tariff is coming, so we're only going to hire 10 people instead of 100. Well, you just made the recruiting job harder. So what's happening right now, the bar has gone up. It's like, okay, like before, you didn't care what school you went to. Now all of a sudden it matters again, because we have to figure out, like, well, there's only 10 spots. Who are the 10 lucky kids? And so for people like me who are egalitarian, who care about opportunities and all the things, it's like, this doesn't feel good, because I'm all about how do I democratize opportunity. All of a sudden now, referrals. It's like, well, you get 100 people. If you can hire 100 people, of course, a few of them are going to be referrals. Now, if there's only 10, 100% might be a referral. So in all honesty, what's happening right now is like all of the gains that I felt like we achieved through COVID. And then this sounds like counterintuitive. It's like, what does COVID got to do with any of this? COVID made it so where everyone can apply to these jobs. We were also in a hiring boom. We were opening up. I remember when we got the blessing to open up to more schools. We were even encouraged to go to community colleges. Like, wow. I want you to hear what I'm saying right now. Like, this is only 2 or 3 years ago. We were saying, William, we can't get enough university talent. Let's go dip in high school. Let's go dip in community colleges. Let's go figure out, how do we get some students who don't have a diploma and get them into an apprenticeship. We've gone from 3 years. I mean, that's what I was doing at Peloton.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing at Microsoft. That whole conversation has changed again. Now we're back to elite. We're back to referrals. We're back to, oh, you are the son of the CEO of this person. Okay, you get considered. Like, so I'm just being brutally honest. That's what's happening right now. We have fought, many of us as leaders fought so hard to dismantle all of that machinery. But again, when you only have a few roles, those sad things matter. Now, that could be disheartening to some people, but that's the honest truth. It hurts as someone who is sitting here.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, that's real right now.
Yeah.
And so for companies who do have a lot more, who are hiring more people, it's a lot easier for you all to maintain that. But for many companies right now, like, that's the stuff that we're dealing with. So my recruiters, and I say my recruiters in the university space, like, we do everything we can to make things fair and all that. But in all honesty, when the opportunities are fewer, those things that we don't talk about often, all of those things that we don't like to acknowledge, they matter. It's like, well, you went to the right school, you went to this major, you have these different skill sets. Like, we care about that because we only got 10 spots, so you get the job.
So let's talk about how you fight back against that. Like, if you are a first-gen student, if you are a community college student, if you are a student at a non-core school, what do you do in 2026 to still get your foot in the door if the door is slamming shut on you?
Relationships.
Yeah. What does that look like? Because I feel like,
How?
I'm
Yeah,
preaching
no,
this all the time. Omar's preaching it all the time. And then we have so many students who are like, oh, that sounds hard. It sounds confusing.
No,
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with
Yeah.
you. Like, again, LinkedIn, you got to remember, LinkedIn didn't exist in '04.
Right.
At least not in the way it is now. I literally just told you my personal cheat code. How did the liberal arts guy from UVA, lived on a farm, didn't know what McKinsey was, get a job in banking at $1 trillion financial services company? And at the time, IBM was the Microsoft. It was the Google at the time. Google wasn't a thing yet. IBM was still big blue. So for William to get those opportunities, I just said, like, I went on this thing, we called it UCAN, University Career Assistance Network, but basically it was like our alumni database. And so basically it was all the alumni, and you could figure out what your connections to them were. And you had to send like really bad Lotus Note emails to them, and they would write you back. So that is what, William, let me get you to that recruiter. Remember, I wasn't a country club kid. I didn't go play golf. So this is the poor Black kid. Remember, I said all those boxes before for a reason, but I had to do a lot of stuff that got me those doors and opportunity. And so for the students that are listening and you're like, listen, William, I didn't go to the core school. I didn't do this. You can build a network. You can reach out. I'm also an introvert.
Really? Wow.
Yes, I am. Sometimes I don't like talking all the time, even though it's my job. What allows me to overcome it is helping people get the opportunity. And so I can shut that part of myself off. And then when I'm done with this, I'm going to go lay down. But I say that to simply say, if you're an introvert, LinkedIn has made this easier. Like, just look up some people that you have some things in common with. Because for introverts, we like to go deep. Yeah. Like, we don't want to just talk to you. We want to go to your whole family story. We want to hear all the things, and we want to build that deep relationships. That's what LinkedIn is for. So focus on a few people. So hopefully that doesn't overwhelm you. I'm not saying you got to talk to 100 people. I'm just saying you got to build it with a good 3 to 5. So if you want to work at XYZ company, Google, I'm making it up, who within your network works at Google now that you can like add and then use AI. Hey, I am interested in talking to William Chichester at Google. In this example, we were on the rowing team and he was on the rowing team. Help me come up with a script on how I can write him, and also help me to write a script on what I can say on the phone call, because I don't know what the hell to say to William. Can you give me a script? AI, again, none of this existed when I was doing this.
It should be a golden age of networking.
Actually makes it easier for them.
Yeah.
So,
hey, real quick, William, is this going to be the same playbook you follow now at this point you find yourself in your career?
That's exactly what I'm doing right now. Precisely. Which is the point I'm making. Like, I'm doing both the cold applications and the outreach. The outreach is getting me the foot in the door. There's some roles I'm applying to. I'm like, I know damn well I can do this job. Denied. Is it because William isn't good? No, it's because they got that. Like I just said, like, that's the funny thing as a recruiting leader I'm guilty of this too, but sometimes I don't feel like it. It's like, I just filled out Workday. How many times do I got to complete Workday to do this application? I'm trying to empathize with the people who are listening to this call right now. How many times do I need to fill out Workday and complete this application again and again and again? But it's when I am outreaching the people who work at the organization. And mind you, this is the other cheat code I would say, don't just go for the recruiter. I think the issue for many job seekers is that they look for recruiters. I actually go to anyone in the network. I'm like, listen, I don't care if you're a software engineer. I don't care if you're an accountant. I'm going to reach out to you. Everyone matters, because at the end of the day, it doesn't merely matter who gets my resume to the right person. It just needs to get to the right person. And I think some people are just so like biased of like, I got to get it to a recruiter. And we get flooded with these requests. And the reality is that the people who are going to advocate the most for you may not be the recruiter. It might be a random person that you barely know that actually might be your key to getting the interview.
So, William, I got to ask the big question of 2026 here. And I'm amazed that we've been speaking with a recruiter with 2 decades of experience, and yet we're 45 minutes in and we have not said those 3 little letters, ATS.
Yes.
All these students, all these job seekers are freaking out about the ATS. There's a lawsuit, as you know, against Workday right now, that these ATS systems systematically discriminate against some people. What do you want people to know about ATSs? Is this something to really worry about, or is it just a figment of our imagination?
I think the macro piece matters more. I think making making ATS the scapegoat is not the answer. And if you're afraid of it like that, you shouldn't be. At the end of the day, most companies, let me just really put this out there. Most companies don't even utilize the same ATS. Some of us, I mean, hell, the company I just came from, we had ADP. I was like, what is that? Right. I just joined the company. I didn't know ADP had an ATS, but they do. I didn't know. So what I'm saying is that some companies, no matter where you're applying, like we're not all using Workday, we're not all using Greenhouse and some of these other platforms. So it's not about ATS at this point. It's really about, again, that network and that relationship. Again, it's just so many people are applying. There's a lot of people out of work. These recruiters are getting flooded with in-mail on LinkedIn. They're getting flooded with requests. You got hiring managers, because the market is so plentiful, they get to be picky. So sometimes it's really not the system or the tool. It's about like, again, how do I just get the hiring manager to say yes to me? Less about the tool or the system itself. Because at the end of the day, like, even if it's the best ATS in the world, if you're still getting 1 million applications, it won't matter, right? Like you still need to somehow figure out, how do I get my resume at the bottom of the pile to the top? And the only way to get through that is someone in the door. Someone has to help you get in. Wow. I mean, my whole life has been about someone seeing something about me and saying yes to me, even when I may not have realized why they're saying yes to me, but they were like, there's something about that little bald head black dude. I'm gonna just give him a little chance or this opportunity. Like, that's seriously, like, sometimes it's just chance or luck. Like, you just gotta get someone to say yes. And it's a human. Like, it's not a machine. That's why I'm like harping on this networking piece so much, because you're just cold applying. You can use whatever tool out there that, like, William, this can get you to 1,000 applications. That's not going to change anything. Yeah. If someone knows you or can vouch for you, way more value, in my opinion.
That. We're sort of ditching the ATS boogeyman, focusing on what matters. Okay, I've got one final question, and I'm going to turn it over to Omar for the grand finale. That is, you talk a lot online about the idea of the career cheat codes, which of course I love as someone from the golden age of gaming, growing up with Nintendo and all that good stuff. Up, down, left, right, AA, BB, CC, whatever Contra was.
Having just watched Super Mario Brothers this weekend, oh my God.
Taking us back.
Jeremy, come on, man. There was no C button.
There's no C button. There's only 2 buttons. That's why it's too complicated these days. Okay.
I let him go with it. I was like, okay, cool. That was later.
That was Sega. Okay, here's the real deal. I think a lot of people are going to say, okay, I get it, William. I know networking is important. I'm doing it. I'm working on it. But are there any other counterintuitive piece of advice where you see students, job seekers consistently doing the wrong thing when you know they should be focusing on this or that and no one's even talking about it? Any other cheat codes or hacks that people should apply here in this tough market of 2026?
It's funny because I thought about this a lot before, which is why I'm harping on the relationships piece so much right now, because that is what made the difference in '08. Like, again, there's so many similarities to what's happening right now and to what happened back then. And it really was about relationships back then. So that is not going to change regardless. Now, the key is when you get that person to say yes to you, what are you going to say? And I think that's where if you listen to that part, like, okay, William, I'm going to go reach people. Like, instead of doing 100 applications, I'm going to do 100 network outreaches. I would say that's probably going to produce more for you. But then what happens is like, okay, well, now you got in front of the person. What are you going to say? And I think that's where I would say the next part of my advice would be is to spend time on what is that elevator pitch? What are you going to say that's going to resonate with them to keep the relationship going, to advocate for you? And again, this is where, again, AI wasn't a thing back then, but it is now. Use that to your advantage. Put it in ChatGPT. I want to build a relationship with this person. How can I do it? AI. And then, of course, like, you have to trial and error. You're not going to get it right all the time. But I would say that is where I would spend your time. Like, letting AI optimize your resume or optimize how you prepare for an interview, actually practicing with someone, a roommate, or going to the career center if you're a student and doing that work. So that way, when you get the opportunity, because eventually you will get the opportunity, you just don't want to miss it. And if you can actually prepare for that moment, because the moment is going to come, are you going to be ready? Like, that's where I would spend the second amount of time. But first, most people don't spend it on that first part. but then you got to get to the second. It's like, I got to win you over. I got to influence. It gets back to those skills and competencies we talked about before. That's where you win.
That you got to take on the Koopas before you can take on Bowser, the big boss.
I was thinking like Eminem or Hamilton, I'm not throwing away my shot. But this is so helpful, William. And if people want more in-depth strategies on LinkedIn, we did not put you up to this, but there's a great book called Linked that we wrote. I think, just to put in context too, like you started with your narrative, you've got this broad sweep of the benefit of being able to look back and see how these things connect. But that's the benefit of being at the career stage we're at. So for anybody who's like trying to build their career, just be patient, chase your, go full bore for the opportunity that excites you the most. That's both networking, storytelling, making sure you have the requisite skills, but also that whole Steve Jobs sentiment of trusting that the dots will connect in reverse. It's impossible to do looking forward. So that's like a bit of common perspective I think younger job seekers should have. But that does not mean that you don't have a through line, a personal sort of like reason that you do things and pursue things and get excited about things and go nuts with the networking. It's because in your case, what I'm hearing is you have a personal mission to democratize opportunity, to give a hand back down to people who are building their careers and are trying to figure it out just like you were, as that farm kid who ended up at a great university and had opportunities not just because of that, but because you scrapped your way through it, because of that internal locus of control, right? Which I love we could spend an entire another podcast talking about all the things happening right now in our market and our economy and our world. But you're saying, that's happening. What are you going to do about it? That's within your control and impossible to know what's going to pay dividends, but you got to put in the work and the effort. And then keeping that human in the loop as the thing that you're really building is a network, is relationships, is human capital that will be spent on you at some point. And I think that's just such a great reminder. All of that is just such a great reminder. So thank you for offering those perspectives. I'll give you the last parting thoughts if you have any.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought it back home because again, I didn't want what I shared earlier to scare you. The beauty of our age, being the old bald guy, if you can see me, and having lost my hair in college, I can say all of that, right? It does get better. And again, for the students, we've seen this movie before. Right. It may have different characters in it. It may have different circumstances, but the movie is a movie and it has an end. Right. And so the chapter that you're in right now, just know there will be an end and there will be a beginning. But it's everything that you just said. And as in your recap, it's about not allowing this stuff to get you, to depress you, to make you anxious or any of that. It's more about what can you do within your control. You have LinkedIn, you have AI, you have these tools, use them to your advantage and let that continue to guide you. But the biggest thing that I want you to just have is resilience. You're going to get said no a lot in this market. When it happens to you, don't collapse and like, oh my God, the sky is falling. No. Someone eventually is going to say yes. So you got to constantly keep getting back on your horse. That is the last thing that I wanted to say, because at the end of the day, we don't know in my current situation, I don't know how long I will be out on the market, but I will get a new job. William, how do you know? I've seen this movie before. I know what I need to do. I know what's in my control, but I will be employed. The next time we talk, I will be employed again. The thing that people just feel like is like, oh my God, this is just such a horrible time. It is, but we will be okay. And I think that's the part I just want to leave people with, if that's helpful.
I love that. And then for the folks who want to go even further and learn more from you, or maybe even hire you, where can folks reach you, William? How can they engage with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. So find me on William Chichester.
There we go. All right. Well, definitely check out William's podcast, check out his profile. And William, I cannot thank you enough, both on behalf of Omar and myself and all the folks listening out there. Thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Happy to.
All right. This has been WTF Is Up. Thanks so much for listening. Give William a shout out on LinkedIn, and we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.